Are you trying to grow your garden on a budget? Well, welcome to my channel. I'm a Central Texas gardener in Zone 8B, and in today's video, I want to share my top 5 Texas plants that not only perform in our climate, but multiply themselves quickly, helping you fill out your garden while stretching your budget. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to share with you my cheesy garden shirt here. It says, "Bought any plants lately?" So anyway, this first plant here is Pavonia or rock rose, and it is native to Central and West Texas. Very drought tolerant plant. I do not water this at all. A lot of our natives will need to be watered in to get established, but once they're established, they're pretty solid, needing minimum water, and this is definitely one of them. With that being said, you might get nervous because sometimes these will look a little wilty in the afternoon, but that's just what they do, and they'll bounce back without you needing to water them. If they look wilty in the morning, that might be a sign that they actually need a little bit of water. But these typically take a full sun to part shade setting, and I have this sort of in a part shade setting here, and they get about 3 to 4 feet in height and spread, and so these can get pretty big. You can see this one here is like kind of right around my armpit, and so kind of can take up some space, so it's just something to keep in mind. The flowers are very short-lived, so they only last a day, but they are just so beautiful. They almost look like hibiscus, but like I said, they flower prolifically and then they seed prolifically. So what does that mean? Lots of volunteers. And so if you buy a rock rose, you just buy one, because in a season you're going to have like 20 or more, and so you'll have plenty to use in other garden spaces and even probably gift to your friends. All right, here is my rock rose volunteer situation. So here is the main plant, and I actually think this might be a couple of rock roses growing together, but here are all those volunteers. And I mean, I think, you know, I've got an easy like 20 plants here. We'll talk about, this is not a rock rose, we'll talk about this one here later, but you can see them even all back here. And so I will have to decide what I want to do with these, because if you see how big this is, I can't have all these here. That's just not going to have enough room. So I'm going to have to move these, maybe gift some to friends and family. But I'm telling you what, that this rock rose, just get one, because before you know it, you're going to have lots more. So this is Ruelellia. That's what all of these very low growing plants with purple flowers are. And specifically, this is a variety known as Katie's dwarf Ruelellia. And this is a relative of the Mexican petunia, though it's not as tall and it's not as aggressive, but it's still a very prolific reseeder. And the story is, it was discovered by Katie Ferguson, a Conroe, Texas nursery owner. And she discovered it in her nursery, and the rest is history. And so this is a very drought tolerant plant, and is perfect for those areas where you need something very tiny, because you got to tuck it into a crevice, or maybe something like a very narrow bed or on the very edge of your bed. And it is a perennial, so it'll come back for you, but you won't have any winter interest. The flowers are very short-lived, maybe about a day, but they flower prolifically. And the leaves are just interesting too, and so you kind of get some interest even from the foliage. And so let me show you what my volunteer situation looks like. I've got them growing in between my flagstones in my walkway and on the wrong side of my walkway, because really what I had envisioned was them just growing along this sort of narrow strip of the border of this bed. But I will say this, I'm just going to let them do their thing in the heat of the summer and probably through the beginning part of fall, and I'm going to transplant them in the cooler temps, probably October, November time frame. And that's what I'm going to do with all of my volunteers that I'm going to put in another area. Is I'm going to wait till the temps cool down. If they're happy where they're at, we're just going to leave them, because they're doing probably better than they would if you dug them up and put them in a pot. They're going to need a lot more maintenance. So that is one recommendation I would have for you. If you've got these volunteers, wait till the cooler temps to transplant them. So this is Ruelellia, commonly known as Zexmenia. And Zexmenia is a very drought tolerant Texas native. And it gets about 2.5 feet in height by 3 foot in spread. Prolific reseeder, so sometimes it even looks like a ground cover. It can act like a ground cover because it just spreads out by seeds. Very versatile plant. I've got it growing in several different sun exposures, eastern, western, and southern. And I also have it growing in several different types of conditions in terms of soil. I've got it growing in a mulched bed with heavy clay soil, and I've also got it growing in pretty much straight decomposed granite. And one thing I'll say about our Texas natives is that even though they'll tolerate some of our clay soils, sometimes you can help them along by amending your soil with some sort of gritty material like expanded shale to help facilitate drainage. They just tend to fare better with a well-draining soil. So with that being said, I wanted to show you some of my various Zexmenia and what the volunteers look like. So here's one that I have growing in a mulched bed. And but it's just sitting on top of these boulders, and these boulders get hot. This is southern exposure, and so it gets full sun for pretty much all day long, and it's sitting on top of hot boulders, and it's just thriving. These really have a beautiful mounding habit, and so that's another thing I love about them. You can see another volunteer over here, and it looks like we've got something enjoying that nectar. And so I'm always seeing bees and things out here. The other thing I love about this plant is because those stems, I don't know if you can appreciate those stems, they're pretty rigid. They're not woody, but they're rigid enough for small birds to sit on them and just to eat the seeds. And so really, really cool plant. Brings love by the wildlife. I'm taking y'all down Zexmenia Alley here. And so you can see I've got Zexmenia on either side of the walkway, but this was the original plant that I first installed, but I've got several that have reseeded themselves along the other side. And these are growing in pretty much straight decomposed granite. And so it's a very versatile plant. These are growing with eastern sun exposure, so primarily morning sun, though they do catch a little afternoon sun as well. So this is kind of the southwest corner, but here's another Zexmenia, and we're rounding the corner more towards western exposure. So here's this Zexmenia, again, growing on top of western exposed concrete. So that means it gets afternoon sun, afternoon Texas sun, and it's getting it from the top, and that concrete gets very hot, so it's getting it from the bottom, and it is not at all bothered. And so I've got a couple of volunteers here. You can kind of see another one here. If you're wondering what this is black-eyed Susan, or Rudbeckia. And then I think courtesy of a bird, I have got another one here. And so something to keep in mind about Zexmenia, not only will it reseed readily, and so you will be able to extend your garden using free plants, but it also performs almost all year. So it will flower from early spring all the way through early winter. And so really, really a great option for your drought-tolerant Texas landscape. All right, and I kind of wanted to show you guys something. This is just sort of a side note. This particular plant, I haven't found it to be a prolific reseeder, but I'm just so surprised at how big these have gotten over here. This is Blackfoot Daisy, and there are 3 plants. Just it was like one here, and one here, and they were pretty tiny when I put them in. And this is, I don't know if you can tell, there's a culvert there. They are in well draining soil. It's pretty much just rock in that area, but I wondered if they would thrive or if they would bite it, because, you know, like I said, all the rain runoff goes through that culvert, but it looks like they've really taken off. I mean, they're kind of encroaching the other plants over here. So another great Texas native, not necessarily gonna give you a lot of volunteers, but if you're not aware of this one, I just wanted to let you know. All right, so the next plant I want to talk about is Salvia Farinacea, and these are commonly referred to as mealy blue sage or mealy cup sage, and these are beautiful Texas natives that are very drought tolerant. They commonly get 2 to 3 feet in height and spread depending on the variety you get. They can take a full sun to part shade setting, and these ones here are in a western sun exposure setting, so getting that full Texas sun in the afternoon, and they're taking it just fine. And all 3 of these plants were transplanted this spring, and so they're still pretty small. But next season they'll kind of gain some momentum. Many of our plants here in Texas, and probably true of other places, follow a crawl, walk, run progression in terms of their performance. And so don't be discouraged if you just put a plant in and maybe the first year it's not, taken off right away. But I wanted to share that even though these were just transplanted several months ago in the spring, they've already put off their own volunteers. And so top performing plant that will give you more plants to help you extend your garden. So I have kind of a couple of interesting phenomenon going on with my Salvia Farinacea. And that is, number one, I think I might have a couple of different varieties here. And I don't remember planting different varieties, but apparently I did. I have the more traditional native with the slender silvery colored leaves, tends to be a bit shorter. And then I have, I think, a Henry Dulberg variety, which has a wider leaf and a serrated edge to that leaf, tends to be a bit taller. And they say the blooms tend to be a bit a darker blue, but I've not really been able to tell that. And then the second phenomenon that's going on is amongst that Henry Dulberg variety, I have now a white variety. And so it made me do a little research because I was like, what's going on here? And so I stumbled upon a article by Greg Grant, who's a horticulturalist, and he is the one that's actually discovered the Henry Dulberg variety, and he did so at a cemetery. And so Henry Dulberg is the grave site that he found that plant on, and then on Henry Dulberg's wife's grave site, Augusta, he found a white bloom variety. And so that is where we get those varieties from. And his article is fascinating, so I'll be sure to link it in the description box. But like I said, these are top performing natives, bloom pretty much from early spring through early winter if we have a milder winter. They are herbaceous perennials, so they'll die back down to the ground in the wintertime, but they come back with a vengeance in the spring, and they're very vigorous in growth to the point that I often have to prune them down a couple of times in a growing season. So this is Anacanthus. This is also known as Flamacanthus or hummingbird bush. And you can see why. It's got those small red flowers that hummingbirds really like, that tubular shape to them. This is a full sun plant, though it can take some shade, and it gets about 4 to 5 feet in height and spread. This is more of an airy, open type of shrub. And one thing I will say is that with a lot of our full sun Texas natives, if they get any shade, they tend to be a little leggy, or because they're kind of reaching for the sun. So if you have a full sun plant, you'll get a more compact growth habit if you actually have it in the full sun. Orange variety that has more of those orange color to it, but same blossom shape, and tends to have, I think, more of a sprawling growth habit. You can kind of see it's sort of like hanging down a bit, but that plant has put out all of these volunteers. And so, that's where there's like one there. No, okay, I think this is all just one here. And then all of these little guys there amidst the rock rose, that's what that plant was. And even back there, you can see it. So another very prolific spreader for you, for better or for worse, but I think for better if you're trying to build a garden. All right, I want to share 2 honorable mentions that are both shade plants, and the first one is American Beautyberry. Now, I had a more mature one here a while ago, and it just up and died, And I don't know, I think it was diseased. I don't know what it had, but it had reseeded itself. And so I have got several plants here that I'm gonna have to kind of figure out what I need to do with them because they do get very big. They're about 4 to 6 feet in height and spread. They have these beautiful magenta berries. The birds love them. That's kind of why I set it over here, because it's kind of where my birds hang out. I've got a fountain and a feeder, and maybe they were the ones that helped me kind of get this reseeded. But a really beautiful shade option. All right, so another great shade-loving plant that readily reseeds itself is inland sea oats. And inland sea oats is an ornamental grass that loves the shade. Now, this looks pretty scrappy because number one, it's probably getting more sun than it really wants. And number two, we always accidentally step on it when we're walking from our patio, like into this area. And so that's why it looks the way it does. But it has these beautiful, it's known for these beautiful seed heads. And they're pretty prolific, hence the prolific spreading of it. And so I have one little volunteer that's currently frying in this Texas summer. But, you know, if it makes it, it makes it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But just to give you one more shade option, consider inland sea oats. All right, I got one more thing I want to show you. If you watched my last video, you know I had a big brush pile here that spawned off a lot of really cool plants. It's gone, but I'm sure it'll be replaced shortly. But I've got a few more things that had spawned off before I got rid of it. This guy, and then these here. And these are Lindheimer senna. And these are beautiful Texas natives. I think these get pretty big, like 5 feet or so. They're a shrub, have yellow flowers. And so I'm gonna definitely be able to find these a nice spot because I got a big lawn reduction coming up this fall. So that was 8 great plants that are gonna help you grow your garden and stretch that budget. I hope you guys found that video helpful. And until the next one, y'all take care.